Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Professor Jeremy Yates, and I got the pleasure to work with Gabe Kane for the Student Scholar Days presentation that he's going to share with you this afternoon. And he's going to talk to us about what's going on in the K-12 physical education program.
Thank you, Jeremy. As you said, my name is Gabriel Kane. I was born and raised in San Diego, California, to Mary Kane and Kevin Kane. That's a huge reason I wanted to become a teacher. My mom is a teacher. She works with special needs children in inner city San Diego. I was born unilaterally deaf, so I've been adhering to adversity my entire life, and I had to learn multiple ways of learning processes so then I could take that and apply it into my learning. It's a huge motivation tool for me to sit down and want to continue to learn how to teach and continue to learn ways to teach people that need it. So we in the HPP department focus primarily on physical education teaching emphasis for this primary study. It works from HPP 101 in Introduction to Studies and Sport as a Profession, and then 141 with team activities, where we learned how to broaden out to a whole class and teach a whole class different activities, and where we would introduce different techniques and skills. And then we would go to 240, which was instructional and curricular design. So we would take those that we had learned, and we could apply it to actually making lesson plans. After that, we would do individual and dual activities, so we could break it down to where we could start working with personal and social responsibility cues, and having the teachers work with students to build individual skill basis on their independent needs. The external interdisciplinary skills that we would take from, which means we would take the learning from where other sources and classes in our curriculum and put it into our teaching, comes from maths, sciences, English literature, and the education experience courses as well. So what is a work sample? A work sample is a project where we students get to analyze our teachings, gain data about how effective we are as teachers, and reflect and grow on our mission toward achieving beginning teacher standards. It's the physical evidence that we get to take from our experience teaching and hand to somebody and say, look, we are effective teachers. The components of a work sample. So national and state standards guide 1 through 6. The reflective essay, component 7, is based on students reflecting on how they meet teaching performance competencies outlined by the National Association of Sport and Physical Education, or NASPE. So we had to take this as APA, all format, and then we had to create different lesson plans, and we had to have images and make sure that it was completely full and it wasn't just like an empty book. It's right here. This is what one kind of looked like. Bunch of student work and student plans. So 315 and 318 in HPP are our first go around at the work sample. We get paired in this process, and we also work with the team teachers, so we aren't just alone in this process. We get to reflect with somebody. We get to go through the whole process with somebody right here next to our side that's in the same program as us, and they get to teach the same things, so we're not just alone. Both students are going to get filmed at this time, and then we're both going to analyze each other's film. So that's really helping with getting acquired to things that are going to come in the future. And then the students present their data and the work sample that they created to the board of teachers that the teachers selected, or that the teachers that want to come. .317 and 319. I'll get a little bit deeper into this because it's the course that I'm mainly covering with this, but it's an independent assignment, so you're finally getting to do all of this by yourself. It's analysis of research-based methods and application methods in teaching. It's application of comprehension studies that you've done, and it's the opportunity to teach by yourself for the first time. You also, at the end of this course, the accumulation of it, you get to introduce yourself to your professor and your fellow classmates. You get to talk about how you would enter an interview and how you would talk to possible teaching jobs in the future. So what are the purposes of the work sample? I'm great at analyzing methods and research and applying it in teaching. That's something that I'm great at. Being able to apply the curriculum is something that the world needs, because you have to have an alignment and have a process for students to go through. I want to become a curriculum writer, which is a huge thing. I understand process. I understand having to go through physical development, going through affective domain, how the cognitive process works, and how students can best relate to relationships and grow into that. And then these three, I love to analyze my growth as well. My growth mindset chooses to learn from every experience that I get. I'm an existentialist when it comes to my philosophy and teaching, and I believe that every experience you go through encounters and will affect your life for the rest of your life. And if you make that choice, it's all about the choice that you're making at that point in time. These three combined make my mission and my passion into my profession, which my profession gives me a purpose. So starting a work sample. You're going to have to understand the instructional models that are recommended for physical education. There's 13 different models that we've studied in our courses. A couple of them are PSR, which is personal social responsibility, outdoor activities and safety, sport education, and tactical games, just to name a few. You have to correlate the research to the standards, and you have to understand the grade level needs and be able to match the lessons to the achievable goals that are proven by research. You have to understand your environment and grade level requirements. Proceed by making a choice best aligned with the unit that's going to be taught when you choose your instructional model. When you get to allocating your resources, you have to be prepared for any question that can be given to you, and then more. You're never going to be able to fully understand the basis because it's still being studied, but you have to be best prepared with the most research-based methods and research to best make yourself credible as a teaching source and give them an actual background and the information that they're going to learn. You have to be able to then create a block plan with all this information that you have that's going to map out the course and how you want to teach it to the students. And then you have to be able to create the assessments that you're going to use to see what they learned in that. You have to be able to test the students prior and gain knowledge, understand the levels of growth you as a teacher help the students reach, and be able to communicate that growth back to them. And then for the last part, we have to form lesson plans into a whole unit. And that's using the research-based methods to help guide students reach the standards they should be able to achieve at their grade level. So teaching practice. After you have all the planning going down, you're going to have to check the lessons with your mentor, because you can't just go into it thinking that you know everything and it's going to be completely perfect. You end up in a chaotic scene. We're not professionals yet, at least. And then we have to still ask to grow in any approach that we're going to have. We all have different approaches to teaching. Not one teacher is the same teacher as another teacher. But they can sit down and reflect on your teaching skills and how they think that you should better acquire the class's attention, or better get yourself to communicate with somebody, or better place yourself so that my back's against the wall and I can see everybody in the room, and I'm in placement, and those kind of things. Then we can apply the methods that we've researched and reflect on how well we've taught through those strategies after each lesson with a reflection with the mentor or the assisting teacher that you work with. It's huge to be able to sit down and talk to somebody and get self-criticism, and be able to handle self-criticism and apply self-criticism into future teachings. So there's tools for evaluation. So the pre and post tests acquire the beginning and gain retained knowledge for data have proving effective teaching. Formative assessments are formal and informal, written or verbal, normally looking for qualitative instead of quantitative information or data. The summative assessments are focused on the outcome of the program. It could also be a reflection of the unit from the students. The video analysis is focused on tone, volume, pitch of your voice, and it's also used here at Adams State for generating feedback data, so we can check on how close we are with standards for research-based methods. And then the comparison to the NASP standards. The National Association of Sports and Physical Education standards helps us teachers see how the youth in our community rank across the nation, and helps us recognize within our students where we need to grow and where we're already excelling. So reflection is huge. It's a huge opportunity to sit down and recognize your growth and your weaknesses. Writing it out is a huge process that people don't understand, and the first step that you have to do is recognize it. The second step that you have to do is accept it. And then from there you can actually grow into the teacher that you want to become, into the lessons that you want to perform or conduct. You can actually visualize and see what you want to do more after you get more practice through reflection. As teachers, we need to be able to openly communicate, and through reflection, we can talk about our communication patterns and how to better them in the future. So my placement. We're here in Alamosa, Colorado. I got Adams State University. Credited, I'm a junior. Been here this is my 5th year now. So predominantly we're in a Hispanic and Caucasian culture, and our main income in the valley is agriculture. This specific class, the specific course that I'm doing this presentation on, is for 317, 319. I worked at Alamosa High School in physical education with 9th and 10th grade weight training, which was actually the worst behaved class of the day that I got to deal with. It was in the morning, 8 a.m. Who wants to lift weights? And I worked with Amber O'Leary. She's an amazing teacher out here. So my chosen instructional model was health-related fitness. The reason I chose health-related fitness was because it was developmentally appropriate and skills and matching provided standards. It was being able to take their heart rate. It was being able to differentiate workouts and how they affected the body systems. It was being able to take workouts and modify for specificity needs in the future. As well as the 3 energy systems are all dominant in sports, played by different students in the class or used in extracurricular activity. So I got to go and observe the class before I actually got to create the data plan and everything, or not data, lesson plan. And I got to see what the students were actually most active in, and see if they were active and how they really responded to activity. So I saw that there was different anaerobic, I saw that there was immediate energy systems that needed to be used, and I saw that there was aerobic energy systems that needed to be used throughout that. These are the 5 easy achievable areas of growth for health-related fitness. NASP kind of maps out the standards for that. So for making my first planning process, I had to create the layout, I had to do the block plan. So I took from the anaerobic to the immediate to the aerobic system of focus throughout the 3 days of my testing, because we had a 5-day lesson plan where we got to sit down and write 5 lesson plans that corresponded to try to make them gain content knowledge. And then I had to create the same pre and post assessment so that I could see the knowledge gained. On the post assessment though, I did add a summative question as a reflection so that I could actually get reflections back on how I taught. I created the 5 lessons plans next that actually made sure that they would get to the students and the 3 energy systems, what workouts stressed those systems, and what fueled the systems throughout the workout so they could properly replenish their bodies. So then I had to create tools and measure data and stuff. And I used workout log, heart rate zones, energy system handouts, exit notes, in-class activities, and other verbal tools to gain data. For the modifications and extensions, I was adaptable for all types of learners. I had to specifically choose three students throughout the class and be able to adhere to their specific kind of learning needs in a way. I chose an athlete, I chose a quote-unquote normal student, and I chose a student that has an IEP, so that I could actually get a broader way of how my approach to teaching worked. And then after each time I had to review not only my lessons with Jeremy, but with Amber O'Leary as well. So the teaching process. You have to do a warm-up in class, you have to get their body moving, you have to get their blood flowing from their organs to their actual muscles so that you can get mechanical work to start. You can't just expect them to get up and run. You can't expect them to just be able to get up and lift. It's not that easy. You actually have to give them work to do. After that, I did the overview of the energy system that we were going to work out that day so that they could gain a little bit of knowledge and ask questions about that energy system if they had anything to question. Let the students kind of keep, for the personal reference, I have different handouts. So we have the heart rate zone here. Might be kind of hard to visually see, but I'd also give them pulses on their body. I'd give them the workout plan, and then we would go to our workout sheet each day. I would have them specifically, at least 1 to 2 people ask about a technique, about the list. It was about 4 to 5 workouts for each thing besides the anaerobic day, it was running. Or not anaerobic, aerobic day, it was running. And then it would also let them know what workout they were doing so they weren't just going into it cold-minded. After that, I independently let them go into a group process. 2 kids would go teach or go work out with each other. It held them with accountability and like an integrity to finish their workout. So if I had an overwatching eye over them, like I still would go around and make sure that they could perform the activities well. And then it was more activity practice time for them because there was less restrictions on who could use the weights. And then I would come in after that, I would gather all the data from their worksheets, and then I'd be able to return it back to them so that they would have their numbers for their journals that they do with Amber. And I would do one kind of checking for understanding closing activity. I would either do an exit note, where I would have them, it's KWL, it's what you know, what you want to know, and what you want to learn, and what you did not learn. And it was making sure that I could actually get in data in what was getting to them and what wasn't getting to them, so when I went back to my assessments that I could make sure that they were getting the content knowledge they needed to. So my evaluations, the pre and post assessments, workout sheets that had the heart rate measures, exit activities, the ones that I was just talking about, or verbal discussion, and then we used video analysis. So 2 separate occasions in the 317 class, I was videoed, once by Dr. Jeremy and once by his teaching assistant, Justin Bethea. And I got to see how my feedback occurred with national recommendations. So 2 to 3 specific skill feedback points per minute, I was averaging 2.3. And then average activity time for the class should be around 50%, and I was over 54. So the data that we got from this, the cognitive domain and retainment is the content knowledge acquired and able to be used for like workouts in the future. The affective is like the safety, collaboration, and commitment. I left the bias information from the test, or like the opinion information out from the test, because that's something you can't really grade a child on. And then the psychomotor is like the skill improvement and the physical attributes and the different numbers you can see. So these are the pre and post assessments that had both affective and cognitive questions on them. The beginning was 67%, and then it went to 72%, and that was including the affective, so it was kind of varied. And then, so with the cognitive retainment, I had 6.2% overall for the class. For the affective domain growth, we had 25.8% because we also used weight safety as a huge part of the class. The psychomotor development was all greater percentage than 2% throughout the class. And the average heart rate was at 105 beats per minute during all 3 activity days averaged. The 3 selected students, as I talked about, I chose the variety. This was actually the athlete. He remained the same throughout it. He was there for the physiological part. He was there to work out. This was the student with the IEP. She grew over 100% of what she had in her first test. And then this is the normal student who was actually applying himself and learned everything that I had taught to him, and he completely gained all the content knowledge. So my reflections. This helped me better prepare my next lesson and myself for a higher chance of success. Every single time after you did a lesson, we had to write down how the lesson went, what we can do better next time, what went well, so that we would give ourselves pointers and we weren't just sitting down and allocating false resources at the end of the day. I need to stop because I'm out of time. But let's throw it over here. And that's the last slide.